The next part is I want us to look at on page for my book on 7th edition is 529 array index out of bound, array index out of bound. And with array index out of bound, here's what I want to point out with. You have this array index. It's out of bound. And the key thing is that the compiler would not know it. I'll give you, for example, you have this array with the size right here. And this, by definition, array starts out with 0. It can't be a negative number with it. So you start with the index of a 0 with it. And it goes all the way up. And the array size is always array size minus 1. If it's array size of 10, 10 minus 1 is 9. So you have this array index, that's this range. Anything falls between this range, it will work. You can't have a negative array, nor you can't have an array that's greater than the size of the array is minus 1. So this expression that I have highlighted here is very important. Very important, because when you actually take the index and you find the range with it, your compiler, there isn't a compiler out there that could do this. The Java SDK doesn't do it, the Visual Studio doesn't do it, so it becomes out of bound. What you want it to be inbound in that range with it. So any element accessed within this index, it's called inbound. Anything that's out of bound is when it's beyond 9 or a negative number, which is undefined with this thing. So make sure you understand what I mean by an array out of bound array with this thing. So read this part right here, and I need for you to understand this line that I highlighted right here. This is on page 529. There's a question I'm going to ask, okay, on this. So make sure you understand this part right here. I'm just going to click on that. That's the highlight part, okay? So that's the part that I would like for you to know, is that part with it. Next I want to talk to you about is example 8-3 on page 526. And there's a section in here that talks to you about how to initialize an array, how to read data into an array, and there's printing of an array. Each one of these are all, I need for you to know A, B, C, D on this, and of course find the largest of the array with it. But the one I want to hone in on is how do you output or see out an index in an array. And this algorithm that you see here, in this right here, excuse me, is that this is how you output an array. Look at the body of this loop first, alright? So if the index is 0, 1, 2, that's what you want. I always recommend you writing the body first, and then come out and write the loop above it, outside it. That process is to start with 0. Let's say you have an array size of 10, and you want to put a space between the content and out of this thing. So I will have a statement and ask you is, how do I output this? What is the output for this array given the set of code? Okay. Next, again, it goes back to these problems that I will do. So let me give you an example of one of the problems that I could ask from you from this thing. For example, I can give you an array size, let's say, I don't know, beta. And this beta array could have a size of, let's pick a number, it sounds pretty good, doing 10. Alright, let me also give you another snippet code. I'm going to initialize I as your int, for example. Inside this, I could give you a simple code. Let's do initialize that to 0. I could ask you, what if I did I, test I until 5, and then I want to update I in this thing. And inside of this body, I'm going to do beta. I want to use the index of I in here, and I'm going to write an expression. I want to set an expression. Any expression could be I, excuse me, plus 1. Alright. So what happens, what is the output for this? What is the output for something like this? Alright. Plug I in this thing. What do you, I mean, what is, what is basically, what at the end of this thing, what do you get from this thing? I'm sorry, let me rephrase, not what's the output from this thing. How about if I ask you what is the value of beta beta, let me make up some more of these, beta 2, okay, in this thing. So when you look at something like this, so I ask you what is beta 2, if you put this on what's that, hand trace table that we always do, right? So I'm going to create two tables off of this thing, so just two columns with this thing, and the other column I'm going to call is beta square I. Put this in square bracket like this. So when I is 0, what's beta? Beta is going to be 0 plus 1, so beta I is going to be 1, right? When increment I becomes 1, beta becomes what? 2. And if I is 2, beta becomes what? 3. So the answer, since I'm asking you, is beta 2, which is I is 2, it's going to assign 3 is what's inside of beta. So so that's the question. Something like this I could ask you to do, but the answer in this one is 3 for beta 2. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for right here. All right. The next point I want to make is make sure this is example 8-1 on page 522, and here's a sample of how you actually declare an array of num 5. All right. Now, this is how you declare it. Make sure you understand how you read it and understand how you declare an array, because I want to ask you, be able to define an array alpha with 25 component of type int with it. Okay, so that's how you declare an array with it. So make sure you use the syntax properly with it as well. Inside the lab, I also have I also put in 5 questions pulling out from the exercise in your lab, in your homework. If you look at your homework that I had you do, remember those problems that I gave you? Write the code that fill an array value with it. So there will be several questions. This part right here is what I'm talking about. You can get something very comparable to it. You might see the same, might not with it. So you might see something very comparable for it. Let me just, I want to bring your attention, give me a second, and let me load those up with it. Okay, hold on. So, both in your exercise, I want for you to take a look at this right here. This is the I would like for you to know. Talk about this part right here. Let me just walk you through this right here. You're supposed to write an array that actually fills the size of this, right? So one of the things is that if you looked at inside of this thing, so technically, write code that fills an array, and there's several ways of doing this thing. So if you take this array size right here, look at this right here. So this starts with what? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's easy enough, right? You can actually set a particular value to an array with this thing, and you can actually go in and kind of write. You know that the array starts with 0. It goes down the list with this thing, and how do you take this and increment this thing, and it becomes 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 with this thing. So if you look at it, make sure you understand how you write the array with something like this. So with this in mind, if you look at this, if I gave you a simple one like this, so it's going to be what? I plus 1, and then you write the body for this thing, right? All the way down to here. What the one that I didn't mean to throw everybody off is this one. 7 is a prime number, all right? You're not going to get an expression out of this right here with it. So the answer to this is to basically, you have to give in an int array, call that an array array, and you just code it, hard code it basically with it. So you put all of this in by doing 1, 4, 9, 16, Okay, all this array inside it. Now the reason I didn't mean this to be so with this right here. So this is the one that actually code, you can hard code this thing, is this array with this, how to generate this expression with it. Because I had you do A, B, and C, and you were thinking of an expression with this thing. So FYI with it. But anything like this is fair game. Any one of these in here is fair game with it as well. So make sure I pull 5 questions from here for you to actually to do. So make sure you practice these exercises with it, and I would like I'm going to ask you some of these exercises, some of these problems with it as well. Okay.